Hello and welcome to my review of Luma Island after having completed the game 100%. Luma Island was released on November 20th on Steam and was both developed and published by Feel Free Games. I picked this game up randomly when it came out and was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. That being said, there were definitely some aspects of the game that I enjoyed less than others. So let's get into it. Note that this video may contain some mild spoilers, but I'll try to avoid major spoilers as best I can. Gameplay. Luma Island is a farming sim type game where you can grow crops, go mining, fight monsters, fish, and raid temples. In the beginning, you have to make a choice about what profession you would like to pursue, and this dictates how you will earn money early in the game. However, you're not locked into the profession, and you can purchase a new one at any time. The more professions you purchase, the more expensive the remaining professions get. Professions can be worked simultaneously, so if you get stuck on one or want to change of pace, you can do so at any time with no penalty, which is really nice. Without diving in too far, the professions are cook, brewer, treasure hunter, blacksmith, fisherman, jewelry crafter, and archaeologist. Each profession has different ways to gather materials and craft items that you can sell. Some are very straightforward, like cook and brewer, where you mostly grow crops and cook dishes or brew drinks. Others, like blacksmith or jewelry crafter, will require mining ores and precious gems to craft items. Archaeologist is a little bit different than all the rest, as this requires repeatedly running temples for loot to craft and sell for money. I would highly recommend not starting with archaeologist unless you want to play a very slow game. I personally started with fishing, which seemed to be a good choice as I felt I could gather the required fish quite easily, and they sold for a good bit more than some of the other professions' early items. In addition to progressing through your profession, there's an area or zone progression element to the game. There's a light story involving some form of catastrophe that takes place on Luma Island, and the player is tasked with rebuilding the town. The player can also progress to unlock new areas, for example a forest, where new items can be found along with temples to complete to advance the light story. Ultimately, I felt the game did a good job with the exploration and unlocking of new areas. I found it exciting to progress through each zone and explore to unravel the puzzles and mysteries that each held. The profession side of things, however, definitely gets stale after you complete just one or two professions. Grinding all of these out to max level is a bit of a chore and doesn't get more exciting, it gets less and less exciting each time. In fact, due to how shops work in the game, towards the end of maxing everything, the game almost turned into an AFK or idle game for me, as I needed to wait for in-game days to pass in order to progress. You can only sleep at certain times to progress to the next day, and this really slowed things down for me. One area where the game really struggles is its combat. There are only a handful of enemies in the game, and the penalty for getting hit by them or one of their attacks is almost nothing. You either drop a few items that you can immediately pick back up again, or you die and have to restart from a spawn point nearby. These are never far away, and getting hit might mean losing a few seconds of time. I get that it's supposed to be a cozy game, and combat's not super important, but the stakes are so incredibly low that it almost feels insulting. There's so much more that I could talk about regarding the gameplay in the world, but I'll leave it there and award the game a 7 out of 10 for its gameplay. I had lots of fun in the beginning, but it got more and more stale over time as I worked through everything. Music and sound. This is an area where Luma Island really shines in my opinion. The music is very fitting and fun to listen to. I clocked 153 hours to 100% the game, and I never got sick of the music. I wouldn't say that it particularly got stuck in my head or anything, but I never got tired of it. The music in some areas, especially the mountain, really helped to set the mood and immerse you into the zone. The sound effects are great as well. Little things like walking in water and then having wet-sounding footprints for a few steps afterwards were really neat. All the sounds do a great job of improving the atmosphere. The only negative thing I can say about the sounds would be very small stuff. For example, sometimes in the temples you need to flip switches that will eventually open a door. That door could be on the other side of the room, and if you're far away from it, you can't really hear the sound effect of letting you know you've opened it. It happened a few times, but is overall really a minor issue in the grand scheme of things. The sound design and music is very well done in my opinion, 9 out of 10. Graphics and visuals. Exploring is one of the most central aspects of the game, and the graphics and visuals mostly help to incentivize the player to do so. The overworld areas are colorful and bright and filled with lots of little "ooh, what's that" moments. The temples and mines especially are darker, but understandably so. The graphics are cute-ish and definitely do a good job of capturing the cozy game vibe that the developers were likely going for. It's a pleasure, especially early on, to explore the town and areas and just look at everything. Even if ultimately you realize that the town is actually pretty empty of actual content. 8 out of 10 for graphics and visuals. Story and world. Now, I know story is not the main goal of a game like this, but even the small amount of story that was cobbled together for this game does lack a certain zest to it. There are really 2 main storylines, if you can call them that, in the game. The first is finding these 4 lost ancient keys and opening a door to unveil what mysteries lie within. I would say this is the main story of the game, if there is one, and was one part of the game that I really took to. The keys are found by exploration, and the player should naturally come across them and quickly realize how the zones are laid out after doing the forest area of the game. This part gets a little repetitive, but it isn't super long, so by the time you notice it's repetitive, it's almost over anyway. The second main story, I guess, is a quest line to repair the town after a catastrophe hits. I thought this part of the game was extremely lacking. There are only 3 or 4 quests in this entire quest line, and they aren't the most exciting. It would have been nice if completing these quests unlocked more content and if there were more of these to do. However, there's only a minimal amount to be gained by doing these town repair quests. When they first become available, it almost feels like repairing the town is going to be the main focus of the game, similar to, say, the community center in Stardew Valley, but it seems to fall flat in this regard. Lack of expansion of this part of the game was a missed opportunity in my mind. I'm giving a 5 out of 10 for story and world. Endgame and replayability. One nice thing I will say here, and this is aligned with the spirit of this type of game, is that the endgame is really what you want it to be. If decorating your farm is your thing and you want to spend hundreds of hours tearing it all apart and decorating it again and reorganizing things, growing new crops, etc., then this game is definitely for you. There are a lot of cosmetic items that you can get access to as you progress through the game that can really make your farm a home and provide you with many hours of gameplay. Personally, that is not my thing, but I appreciate that this game does a good job of providing it for those that want it. Regarding completing the game 100%, the final goal is construction of the mega structures. I don't mind a grind in a game, but fair warning that this one can definitely take some time, even if it seems simple on the surface. One tip I will have here is that if you intend on constructing these, make that decision early in your game and plan ahead. Shops only contain a limited number of items for purchase each day, so if you aren't regularly buying items that you need, and you get to the end of the game and find yourself suddenly needing a lot more seeds, the game turns into an idle game, like I mentioned earlier, where you end up waiting a lot for the days to pass. The main requirements for getting 100% are mastering all professions, finding all the books, and constructing the megastructures. Many hours of grinding are required to accomplish this, but I'm not sure I'd call them fun hours. If your endgame is decorating though, you're in for a treat. For the endgame and replayability, I'm awarding a 6 out of 10. To clue up, here are my main 3 pros and cons for the game as a whole. Pro number 1, an interesting world that incentivizes exploration. Pro number 2, flexible options regarding progression that lets the player switch if they don't like their chosen profession. And pro number 3, the farm building blueprint system allows for easy planning for your farm, which is a delight for those who are more focused on the aesthetics of things. Con number 1, repetitive gameplay loop that gets boring and dull the more professions you work through. Con number 2, comically bad combat with almost no stakes. And con number 3, something I haven't mentioned yet, the camera angle is really bad. It prevents easy navigation as you can't see anything that is really far away from you. Final score and thoughts. Adding all the scores together, I'm awarding Luma Island a respectable 35 out of 50 or 70%. I feel that if you're a certain type of person, you will really love the game, but if you're looking for something as polished as, say, a Stardew Valley, you'll be disappointed. It's possible they can improve the game over time with patches, but the general gameplay loop definitely suffers from stagnation and repetition. The aesthetics and designing fun are top tier, however, and very enjoyable. I hope this review was interesting or helpful to you. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts about the game and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.